say welcome to everybody. Going back to Kelvin's tennis shoes. He needs to, hopefully he gives me a couple pair. Them are nice. I like it. But anyways, I'd just like to make a couple comments of where we're at and where we're at in the spring. With 7 practices done so far, I think we've seen a lot of growth with a lot of younger guys. Obviously, some guys are out, and it gives a great opportunity for other people, and we like the progress of that. In the back end, obviously, we lost 3 of our guys that were starters, and so it's a challenge for us in the back end to try to help out how we're going to fit that and who's going to be able to replace that. And I think right now everybody's kind of contributing, and I like some of the guys I see, and we can probably follow up with that with some questions later. But everybody's trying to do their job, just like everything, like Kelvin said, is everybody's learning, trying to gather information. I know there's a question came up about where are we at? We every year some people talk about where we are on defensively, and I do believe what Kelvin said is everything is to win. You got to win up front, offense and defensive line. I think that's very important. And I think with the comment that Seth was talking about was a little bit of I see things from the back end and how we want to do it, but we need the defensive lineman. He's totally, absolutely correct. We need that, but we need everybody on the team to be it. It's a different game. The game is definitely changing than what it used to be, in 1999. But same philosophy of how we try to defend the run and how we defend the pass. But right now, I'll open it up to some questions if you guys have.
What was your reaction when Riley told you he's coming back?
Well, I was excited. You could see the stress probably the week of the bowl game, down there, what decisions he was going to make. I think he evaluated. I kind of, let kids go and try to make their own decision on it and how they feel about it. But I was excited to the reason why he came back. And he knew what he had to do. I actually did a thing with him, and we're doing it right now in the process of point of attack grade. And basically what we did is took all his plays that he was at a point of attack, and he kind of had to look at them and evaluate them and see how he did. It's either a plus or minus. And I think he kind of understood that, hey, it might be beneficial for him to come back, and gave him opportunity to be a leader back there. He's one of our leaders back there. I know that, him and, Matt last year, Hankins really did a great job for us as a leader. And back there, how to go about your approach to practice and how do you go to your approach to your meetings and how do you prepare for games. And I think he kind of, he could do a lot of things athletically, but now he's starting to catch on and start recognizing things that he can gather information-wise, formation-wise, when we're out there, that's going to help him become a better, productive player. So.
Phil, you mentioned in your opening statement some guys that are kind of jumping out at you. Who are some of those guys that you're seeing that growth from that you were looking for?
Well, obviously, this is one kid Higgins has really done a good job inside. I mean, as a Mike backer, I see his growth and the way he carries himself in the building and the way he carries himself on the field as a linebacker right now. I thought that was pretty good. Obviously, Noah Shannon, obviously, he's doing a really good job. Seeing the growth a little bit of Logan Lee, Van Ness, I mean, I see that. John Wagner, some of the things that he's done. I know he's been here a while, but boy, this stuff that he's doing. On the back end, I see Cooper DeJean. I mean, he's kind of, growing a little bit, learning. Glad he's here. I got 2 younger guys that came in early, TJ Hall and X, and I think it's really good for them to come in. And, not to say that I like guys coming in early, but I think it's a good learning process of them just gathering information, getting comfortable with what we're teaching, how we're teaching it, and being around the other guys in the room. So, where they're at, they're not, none of these guys are ready to start yet, or not even in the 2 deep yet, but they are making progress and understanding what we need to get done. Yeah.
What have you seen specifically from Wampa?
Wampa, the kid is, I really like the way he takes the approach and the way he wants to come back. And, the first couple of days before we started, comes into my office, wants to meet, make sure he has things down. I think there's a lot of pressure on a kid coming in, and he's highly rated, and so much expectations on him. And all's I seen from him so far was somebody just trying to get better as a player. You know what I mean? He comes in, he wants to know what he needs to do, how he needs to improve, and he actually wants to come in and watch the film with me and sit there and say, what do I need to do better? I don't think he's one of those, he's not the kid that's going to come over, hey, just because I'm a 5-star, I'm going to come in and walk in and be a starter. I think he really looks at, our program. I think that's why he came here, is he knows he needs to develop and still fine-tune some of his skills and understand the defense that we're playing and how he fits into that scheme.
How hands-on are you with, like the defensive line, for example? I mean, is the experience that those two guys have, I know you're close with Seth, allow you to delegate a lot more and give you more time to focus on DBs, or how would you describe your relationship with the
Well, I think we're all understanding it. We've been around it, like Kelvin said, and Seth. I mean, I've been here since '99. Kelvin's been here for a long time as a player, and then came into the coach, and then Seth was my GA. So I think all this stuff we understand, and we're all on the same page. It's not like we have to have, a ton of time sitting there in the meetings and describing what we're trying to do or what we understand our defense is. So it's very, I would say, I'm confident in what they're doing up there. If I have concerns over there, obviously I'll address it. But I think that, most of the guys we watch the film together, and what we see is what we see, and I don't think there's nobody in the room. I'm not even talking about from the GAs to analysts or whoever's in there. They have opinion of what's going on there. They see things too. Everybody has a set of eyes and look at things. So I'm very open to what anybody's opinion is, but I'm very confident with those guys up front and what they're doing. Obviously, they know more football than I do. I'm just kind of, hey, we get to this time, there's a meeting, like Norm used to say, this time the meeting starts, this is time when you go to the restroom, so, or this is when the meeting's over.
How would you explain, why you guys are able to get so many takeaways, interceptions in particular? You set, such a high bar last year, program record for INTs. What's the easiest way to explain, why your defense works in that way?
Well, I think, the way the game has changed, and the RPO game, and what guys are doing, the quarterback movement, and what they try to do with them. The game has really changed in that aspect of it. So for me, the more eyes, we play too high safety look most of the time. Very seldom are we getting into a single high, whether we're playing cover 3 or cover 1, but we're a quarters matchup team. And what you see more guys with eyes that see the ball come out, okay? Obviously, the pressure up front helps us, and, that's what I always say, that up front is, if you're going to win, you got to have the guys up front, whether it's a pass rush game, getting their hands up, tip ball, whatever it is, so there's a factor there. And then the good job that in the back end, how much these guys are really putting in their time to understand the concepts that will affect us, that most people try to run against us. It's, very common to come back and see, you play one team and they'll come back and try to get you. If you get beaten with one play, they're going to come back the next week where somebody else is going to try to beat you with the same play. So our understanding where the weaknesses are, and understanding that the more zone eyes you play, the more zone you play, the more opportunities you have to intercept the ball or get takeaways, in my opinion. The more man-to-man you have, there's less guys, eyes on the ball, seeing the ball in the air. The opportunities are not as great. Okay, either he's going to catch it or not catch it. Usually you see a guy running down the field, and he's running man-to-man. He's looking at the guy. It's hard to defend it. Play a little bit more zone-ish. You can break on the ball, and the good thing about that is, can they understand where the ball reception is going to be when a guy's running a route compared to where the quarterback is aiming and throwing, and the level of his shoulder, is it down or is it up? And is the ball off the hand? There's so many little things that go on in it, and you just don't have enough time to explain it all. But basically, in the realm of things, zone eyes.
The fact that you guys rarely, if ever, play 8 in a box unless unless you're on the goal line or creating, they're
Or we
creating.
can't, or
Yeah,
we can't stop it.
right, or extra gaps or something like that. The fact that you can play quarter, half most of the time, how instrumental is that? Is that mainly still, again, eyes to the ball, 8 eyes instead of 6, that type
Yeah,
of thing?
that's very true. I just, Ken O'Keefe sent me some stuff on the guy that's out at, I think, the Chargers. Who's the guy out of the Chargers right now? But about his, Stanley? Staley, right? Sorry, I apologize for that. The concept of playing too deep and how do they stop it, and how can they be able to stop the run when he was L.A. It's because of defensive line. They had a good enough guys who know how to two-gap some guys and create some issues, but really they were covering from the back end. And the way that you can read and see things and pre-snap. I know Kelvin talked a little bit about the pre-snap reads and stuff like that. That's the same thing with everybody on the defense, is you're always trying to gather information, know the down and distance, the situation you're in, up or down, how many points, halftime, close, end of the game, and are you gathering the information that you need to get? And I'm talking from before the huddle, how long are they in the huddle? When they break the huddle, how do they break the huddle? Who's running fast? Who's looking back at the quarterback? Whatever it is, how they get in their stances. That's all pre-snap before they even go in a formation. And so there's a couple different things. It's pre-snap when the guy's underneath, ready to take the snap, how they look, and half a second after the snap of the ball, what are they doing? And you should know. Pre-snap for the guys in the back 7 and even the guys up front. You better be right 95% of the time, whether it's run or pass, before the ball snap. Everybody can tell after the ball snap. I want to know before. And you got to do it, and you got to be honest with yourself. Are you really being accurate? And if you can be 90, 95%, you got a real good chance to be successful on every play. If you knew it was pass, if I told you it was pass, would you like that? If I told you it was run, would you like that? You sure would. Okay, but how do you give that to somebody? It takes a lot of time and preparation. And everybody does it differently, but you try to give them these slight little keys out there if you can. And sometimes it's going to take a little bit more time than 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here. It's a lifestyle. It's an investment that we asked our guys to do. And when you invest in something, obviously, more things happen when you invest, the better profits you get.
Are you 95% on the sideline? Like, do you know what it
Well, hopefully before I make the call, hopefully I know 95% of the time. That's what you like to do. But yeah, doing a game, yeah, I better be. Yeah, so I can tell those guys what to do. That's why I'm on the ground.
Look at, ever since you put Hook at cash in the middle of the 2018 season, you guys have run about 75% cash or Fortune 5. Now that you have somebody like Jacobs, who's probably like Kirksey and can do a lot of the things that a safety could do, but with the athletic ability, and then also play on the line, and the fact you have a new cash because Belton's going to go to the next level, do you anticipate maybe making it a little more of a 4-3 this year, or at least the percentages maybe come closer to 50-50 than?
That all through time and see how things are going, panning out, and the personnel that they're playing with. There's sometimes that you might not want to have Jacobs on a wide receiver, skilled guys. I mean, we pulled it up today in our practices. Very interesting. The day that we actually said we're going to switch to go to cash. I don't know what year it was, but it was Wisconsin. It was 15-yard line, whatever. Pulled it up. Same route. And it was kind of funny because I was really studying what our offense was trying to do to us in the red zone. And the guy didn't run the same route, but trying to coach that position in the cash against the route that made us change, or made me change, or make me think about changing to put a defensive back in that position. It's just double post. It's not that really hard. They've been doing it for years. But that's the one that got me to think about that. But go back to answering your point. Will it be that will depend, and then they gotta figure out who's going in there, and if are we gonna play a little bit more, if we're gonna put a little bit more man-to-man, pressure on that guy, then I probably wouldn't have 5 in there. I'm saying strict man-to-man coverage skill-wise, depending on that guy. Zone matchup, banging guys, playing, fire zones and playing quarter, half, or cover 2, yes, I can see that. But getting back in there and having them play strictly man-to-man on a fastest guy wide receiver is probably not, we'll probably switch it up a little bit. But that was the same type of thing when we were doing the 40 back then, when we were 95%, 40 defense. Neiman could run just about just as fast as our safeties. So to me, it was, just, a time to switch. That's it.
Coach, there's been a few guys in the secondary who haven't been practicing. I know you mentioned Cooper stepping up, but have you seen guys like D. Fernandez, Castro, maybe even a few others take advantage of that opportunity to have some reps?
Yeah, there's a couple guys that have sit out and it's got the chance. There's some good rotations outside. Tell you the truth, Fernandez has done a decent job coming back. He's getting obviously a lot more reps. I see the guy that's really popped up was TJ Hall. He's really had a good couple practices, and then all of a sudden you get a little bit of overload and you kind of dip a little bit. But I really like what I see out of him. Castro's done a good job in the back end. He's getting more reps, and the guy that I slipped down in cash a little bit right now is Cooper. I think he's done a good job. He's for last year he played outside, he could play inside, probably could play cash. So there's multiple positions that these guys can play. Quinn Schulte is a guy that's really done a good job for us. I think I see growth in him and how he's running the back end, just like Jack was doing it. Kelvin is, he's been out a little bit, but the one thing I see about the couple guys that have been out, sitting out because of just trying to make sure they're healthy is, between Kelvin and Harris, how much growth they've had by just watching. And I really believe they can, as you can watch, you can learn more and improve as a as a player watching. And I think they have. And the leadership that they give in this, I'm really happy the way Kayvon's taken his leadership. But it's a work in progress. I mean, we're not even close. I mean, hopefully we'll be undefeated this spring, and then, we'll have a chance. We always try, it's going to be a long ways. We got a long ways to go. Of all the things you have to do. We haven't even fully installed everything on our defense. Not like we have a lot, but there's a couple other things that we like to introduce here so we can go out there and function. And hopefully we get to that point where, doing our camp and preseason that we're starting to reach a place where we're going forward,
As you're looking for the next cash, what are the attributes you're looking for from that person?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is you got to have good instincts. You got to be able to gather information. You're playing closer to the line of scrimmage. You got to be able to run. You got to be able to see things. You got to be confident and be able to play down underneath coverage, and then obviously that guy is usually playing a different position. If he's playing cash, then he probably could play a different position like a safety. So you got to watch the overload, you know what I mean? So you got to have somebody that's tuned into what's going on and understand things and be able to play zone coverage, man coverage, and multiple coverages within that. So, we try to take some guys that can handle the pressure, you know what I mean? How much can you throw them in? How much, and that's the whole big thing about it. And the good thing about here is Coach Ferentz puts us in a lot of good situations where he keeps the pressure on us, where our guys have to excel at a high level. I mean, we try to, we do stats every practice, what it is. We're not very good right now, statistically, efficiently, over, the last 7 practices. We had maybe one that we were okay in. That was the last one, so that's probably why everything's a little bit okay right now, because it was the last practice. But the 2 practices before wasn't real good, so we just got to keep on improving. But we know we got young guys, and we see improvement from a lot of different guys. So it's a challenge. That's why we do it.
That must be looking great then.
Yeah, that's the good thing about it is they are, and they're having fun with it a little bit. But it's good for us and to us to, step up and see what we can do. Yeah.
Are you looking at Castro as kind of what Dane did, and even before him with Hooker, and that is playing both strong and cash right now because of who's out, or do you think he'll settle into one of those roles?
I think, we talked about it, do you overload them too much? I might say who can play different positions. I don't know that yet, but I think Castro might be a guy that would say, hey, let's make sure that you get this one down here before you move to the next one. He has played them both. I think Cooper is a guy that can do that, has shown his ability to be able to play a deep level, third level, and now be able to come down and play the second level. So, right now I think he's still young and still don't know all the stuff, as Castro would know it, though.
You described Cash, like, it seemed like you described Riley when you were talking about the type of player you need, but he also said you want him on the outside. So.
Well, yeah, right. I think Riley could be a guy that could jump inside. Right now, I think he's fine-tuning a lot of stuff out there. We're trying to figure out the other fits, like who's going to fit inside. But sometimes I don't know if I would want to take him out and put him inside. I did that a little bit a year ago or 2 years ago with Hankins, put him back inside. But really, I really like to have a solid outside guy, if that makes any sense.
Is Xavier more than just kind of sticking at safety to one spot? It's his first semester, that sort of.
Yeah, find his way to school, go to class, make sure he come back to the building, and then, try to keep him in one position where he can line up, and then let him diagnose what's going on. And I think, his growth is he's getting better. It might be just a little bit, but he keeps on getting better. Like his demeanor, like the way he goes about his business, so I'm happy about that.
What do you see as the next step for Jamari Harris?
Well, I think for him is he's got to make sure he stays focused. You know what I mean? I think he has a lot of potential. I think there's some plays in the Kentucky game that he made that there's two that stand out to me. One was on a bubble screen. He just went and go. There's no hesitation. Then there's another one that he came off the edge on a crash, and he tackled a guy in the backfield. The ball was running away from him. I really thought, okay, he's moving like a football player that knows what he's doing. I think, obviously you always got to get stronger, be able to take the punishment, and be able to be more consistent and making sure that you take care of the little things that could get you beat. And that's usually what happens, make sure you stay fundamentally better. Mentally, I think he's really improved. I think he was always really good at knowing it, and the more now he's gotten a lot better. He sees it a lot better.
It's kind of interesting. You've had almost a non-scholarship safety, or a guy who came in as a walk-on, develop into a starting safety role almost for the last 15 plus years. I mean, going back to Greenwood and Snyder, and then, Jake Gervais and Kerner, and now with Quinn, it looks that way. Is that a kind of a testament that once they get in the room, that you will, everybo's equal and there's no tiered status, when they walk in?
Yeah, I guess I always try to do. I've always been like that as a coach. You just try to say, you got to play the best guy that's going to help your team win. And if I don't do that, then I'm not fair to everybody else. And I think Quinn has earned the spot. What he's doing so far is I see more growth in him right now than it was last year. So, Jack was there, confident Bowman, and you can see the little bit of growth with Quinn right now. And, I think, it's part of my contract that I saved the university some money. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why. No, but, no, anyways, but I treat everybody the same. Everybody, let's say this, I treat everybody fair, not the same, if that makes sense. Okay, so guys always make a checklist. If I can count on you, are you going to be there to pick me up every day? Are you going to be able to do this every day? How consistent are you? And the guys that usually play, the guys that dictate who's playing, is the guys. The players predict who's going to play. They're going to say, hey, I'm making the decision that I'm playing because you make less mistakes than the other guy. It's simple. Sometimes guys make it easy for me. You know what I mean? And then I don't have a decision. Sometimes I don't even have enough guys back there to play. But I got to pick 4 of the guys that don't make the mistakes that the other guys make. So sometimes it's not hard. It's really hard when you got good competition and you got this guy's pretty good here, this guy's pretty good here. You know, you look like a guy like Terry Roberts. He's done a really good job. You got Harris. You got Riley Moss. So, I mean, you got these guys now. Where are you going to put them all? Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but what guys are going to be up there? That's when it gets to be tough. It's easy when somebody goes over there and gives up or doesn't go about his work the way he should. You know what I mean? Then that guy makes the decision. You know, they think I make the decision. Nah. You guys do. You know what I mean? The player does. It always has been. If you play well, then you. Why do you think I want to play the good guys? The guys that can play well, the best. Why? Do you guys know? Huh? Because if we don't win, what happens?
Unemployment.
Unemployment line. Probably shouldn't say that, but okay. Oh, you guys good? You guys understand where we're at? We're not even close to winning the game yet, but you know our guys are working hard though. Okay, thank you.
A welcomed opportunity for us to be in front of you all. Finally, from a coaching standpoint, especially the assistant coaches, an in-person opportunity. And you know, right now, I think you guys are well aware. You were at practice, I believe, last Tuesday. You know, not a whole lot has changed with our program and how we do things, and I think that's probably what has led to a lot of our success over time here. What you saw in practice, not much has changed. The faces have, and in some cases, the jerseys that are out there. And you know, right now it's a little bit unique at the linebacker position, and where you are seated or where our fans are seated right now, I think they're probably looking at this as, wow, you got Benson, you got Campbell, you got Jacobs, you got experience, you got, you know, maybe a little bit of depth behind them. You know, the way I'm looking at it is these young men, the 3 that I just mentioned right there, are on limited roles right now for obvious reasons in both of their, or in all 3 of their, I guess, medical cases. Nothing significant. But when you take so much batting practice during the season, your body's going to have some wear and tear on it. And I think it was well documented last week by you all, because you do a good job of paying attention at who's out there and who's not out there. And I think as I open up this opportunity right now, you know, it is unique because, you know, there are some guys with a lot of experience that are coming back that I don't know that we're going to spend a whole lot of time talking about today. Unless you wanted to know how they were doing off the field, because, you know, the on the field stuff, the heavy lifting at this point in time, in a very good way, as I see it and as we see it defensively, we're looking at the future. We're looking at what depth we have behind the guys that have actually been out there and done this work, at least, you know, as it relates to last season. So, you know, everybody's still here. Everybody's still on the roster. Not everybody's on the field. I can tell you this: the linebacker group is working extremely hard. But you know, from a coaching standpoint, this is a welcomed opportunity to see what maybe exists right behind that front door. So, with that, I would open it up to questions for you all.
Seth, is it almost important to get the experience for some of those young guys because Jack's not going to be here forever, Seth's not going to be here forever?
I think so. You know, had everybody have been healthy, had everybody had a clean bill of, you know, health, I don't know that we would see things much differently than we are right now. And, you know, I think you look back at maybe Linderbaum last year when he came back, it wasn't like Linderbaum was out there. If we were going to practice 75 reps in a team situation during the course of a Tuesday, Linderbaum wasn't out there for those 75 reps. So you do scale back on the guys that have proven or the guys that have taken significant batting practice, and you try to get the other ones in there because they need to see the fastball, the curveball, the changeup. You know, not because we're in baseball season, I'm using all this right now, but it is kind of how you see things. Like there's a lot of different variables that your young guys, your backups, so to speak, need to see. And if they can see it in the spring, you got me, then it isn't new. They're not playing catch up in the fall. And that's what you're trying to get done right now is you're trying to move these younger guys, that not so much the bottom of your depth chart, okay, but that midsection of your depth chart, you're trying to move those guys into, from a middle reliever to a starting role.
Coach, and in line with what you just said, who are some players that you have seen take advantage of this opportunity?
Well, I think I hope the names are obvious to you, but just as I reflect and I look back at the 7 practices at this midway point of our spring, Jay Higgins has been a young man that has done a lot for us on special teams, has played a significant role as a contributor and done things really well. Like Jay's out and in front. Logan Klemp, who's been, in a lot of ways behind the scenes in his career, jumped onto the scene in some major impact roles last year, special teams wise. He's been out there. Carson Shire, Jaden Harrell, those guys, Kyler Fisher, those would be the 5 that would come to mind. And that's not to take anything away from those that might be behind those 5. But, these 5 that are in those middle reliever roles right now, these guys are pushing the envelope. They have no other option. It's not like, hey, we're gonna put Jack and Seth and Jess back in there. However, I believe we could right now. It's just in their benefit that that they continue to rest, get healthy, and get their bodies where they need to be as we make that push into the summer. But those 5 guys have done a lot of the heavy lifting at this point.
What kind of mental reps can your starters take right now, and how can they grow as players despite not being able to bash with the offensive line?
I think, Scott, there's a lot. These guys just don't come out to practice. What I mean? It's not like they come out to practice. They're not collecting dust. They're not standing around. These guys are, and I'm talking about the guys that are on that rehab mold. Like they're coming out there. There's a full-fledged plan for these guys for about 80% of our practice. So, a lot of the mental reps that these guys get, to put it in perspective for you all, is in those classrooms. And I think that's when it actually gets detailed the most from a coaching standpoint. Everything happens so fast during practice that you're trying to maybe get a coaching point out before the ball's being snapped on the next rep. That when you get into, and if you're trying to do it on a masterful level when it comes to coaching or teaching, okay, that's when a lot of that, a lot of that learning and education is being dealt out, to those guys that have been in there for, significant roles. And, I think right now the credits to those guys that they're in there, they're meeting with our younger guys, they're coaching our younger guys up. I mean, this gives them a chance to figure out that they don't want to be in coaching. I guess but they've done extremely well. But the mental reps are important, and like I said, those take place in the meeting rooms.
What do you see as the next step for Jack's development?
It's not the physical. It's not the it's not the one-on-one stuff. I mean, there's fundamentals that go into it, but it's more on the mental side. Just how fast he can speed the game up, and for him it already comes fast. But there's more left out there, and I would tell you, he sits right in front of me, and as I stand up in the room and cover what's on the board behind me, and I'm trying to give this way of presenting and education, and you look down at him, and there's 3 paragraphs of notes, and he's on to the next page. Like that to me is I don't know that that's inspired learning. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm doing a pretty good job of delivering and being able to relate to somebody that's already been out there. I think a lot of that's just the self-discipline and that that inner drive that a young man has. And as long as he keeps that up, then I think he'll continue to improve, and the game will slow down as he speeds up.
The system or the coaches, or I guess what do you see, Seth, as like the reason that this Iowa defense, I mean, you're assistant defensive coordinator, obviously we know about Phil Parker, KB. Why is this defense top 15, top 10, top 20, whatever, every year in your opinion?
I think it starts with stability. The fact that the defense has been around since 1999. And the stability within that is the personnel on the coaching side of things. And that stability has, I think it's well documented. I don't think it gets enough credit behind the scenes. I think there's some There's some individuals. We've got a staff of, I believe, 9 individuals. There's 4 of us that get a lot of credit. There's 5 that are sitting behind the scenes that, in my opinion, they're as valuable as us. They find themselves correcting us at times as coaches, whether it be myself, Phil, doesn't matter. Because there's a lot that goes into it. But, as I illustrate things from a recruiting standpoint, and I would use the drop screen behind me. I'm sitting here in front of a recruit, and we've got a picture up here against a formation in 2002, and defensively we look the same. Bob Sanders is out there playing safety. You got Abdul Hodge playing linebacker. And then you go to 08 when I was here as a GA, and you've got Pat Anger out there, okay, lined up exactly the same. And then you go to 15 and Josie Jewell's out there at linebacker. You got Jordan Lomax on the hash, or you've got somebody, the picture's the same. We're aligned completely the same. And then you take that same picture, as I did it with a recruit this past weekend. I illustrate, this is Penn State. We got them backed up. Kinnick Stadium's going completely nuts, okay? But we're not phased at all defensively because the same picture is what it was 17 years ago, 18 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think that stability, whether it be philosophically, scheme-wise, personnel-wise, okay, when it all blends together and then there's a unique relationship that's being formed, I think that's where, that's where you're seeing this success. And I don't know that there's any more credit that you would give. And, one person that I'm failing to give a ton of credit to is Norm Parker. And, I think Norm Parker forged the relationship or, manufactured the relationship that I have currently with Phil. I came here handpicked as a GA for Norm, but then I was shoved right into Phil's office, which came with a lot of, to illustrate a stiff arm, like it was hard to get in, it was hard to spend time in his room and get him to trust me. But I think over time that trust was developed. Then you've got I use the former phrase with recruits. You've got the father of 2 former linebackers here, Jay Neiman. You've got a former former graduate assistant, a former player in Kelvin Bell. You've got a former GA, that worked under Phil. And then you've got a former defensive back coach that is now the defensive back and defensive coordinator in Phil Parker. Like, why wouldn't there be success? But I do think that, that's hard to find this day and age. And I take it all the way back 23 years ago, and where we are headed into 24 years now, the only place that could exist would be the University of Iowa and under Kirk Ferentz. Because where else are you going to find the stability, okay, from a head coach and longevity than here at Iowa? And now you've got that same stability because you've got the loyalty of a defensive coordinator and, guy that, quite frankly, has found his feet here and left him here in Phil Parker. And, now the right pieces he's got his son working for him. We've got, Norm Parker's, grandson-in-law, working for us. Like, it just, it seems to work, seems to fit.
Look at Leo right now. Justin Jacobs physically it's kind of like what Christian Kirksey brought him 10 years ago. Does that limit what you might need to do with cash because you have a player who can cover the slot if needed? You don't need to replace, you don't need to have somebody by you. And do you anticipate being more 50-50 cash and 4-3 as opposed to maybe the last 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, I think I've said this, we've talked about it amongst our meetings defensively and then linebacker-wise, that a lot of it is dictated by our opposition and the way that they use their personnel and then how they see things philosophically based on down distance, field position, all the other variables. But, what we have created linebacker-wise, and I think I'm on record saying this, is there are some guys that are limited to one position when it comes to our linebacker group. So I would tell you that there's a guy in my room right now that I only see as a middle linebacker. I don't know that that'll ever change. And then you've got the guys that are Jack Campbell, Seth Benson, and Jess Jacobs, who I can sit here on record telling you that I could see those 3 playing, any of the 3 positions. So I think we've got to do a better job. I personally need to do a better job of just finding the right fit. Because what you don't want is you don't want to run the race 900 and some snaps into it, or whatever it was that Jack had this past year. I just don't know that you want to constantly do that. And if you've got three able guys, like, I think you need to find the right mix. And I know I'm deviating from the cash deal, but when it comes to the cash thing, it just, gosh, it's, you look at it, Scott, and you look at 11 personnel, and the obvious answer would be go cash. Put cash in the game. It's 11 personnel. But what is the down distance? What's the field position? And what is the score differential? And then time of clock, matters too. But you've seen it where, it's been very obvious. Well, it's 11 personnel. Well, why are they out there in 40 defense? Well, because the opposition, because of those variables, they're run driven. Or maybe it was a team that was just continuing to put the ball on the perimeter. I mean, you guys have seen that in Kinnick Stadium where they throw the ball out on a swing route. And now they've got, they've figured out a configuration where they can get a big guy. Okay, and that big guy could have been 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a tight end on a Monty Hooker. Bam. You know what I mean? And then it's tough to get off of him. So what do? You put Barrington Wade in there, you put Nick Neiman in there, or you find a way to get Jess Jacobs or Benson or whoever out there and get a better matchup based on field position, down distance, like I said, all those variables.
So you're kind of saying, like, ideally, you could have a Jacobs, Benson, middle weak side tandem in cash and give Jack more of a break this year?
Yes, or I could give you this illustration, which I have not acted upon. Okay, but in some ways, you take, for instance, and I'm not trying to tell you what the game plan would look like next year, but let's just say there's a team on our side of the division that loves 22 personnel, and they're going to come out 2 back, 2 tight end. They're going to go through the 3 different configurations they can. But at the end of the day, the point of attack is going to come down to where the 2 tandem tight ends are. Well, who is our biggest, most physical linebacker in terms of, the way I see it? Well, in my opinion, that would be Jack Campbell. Well, would you be better suited with Jess Jacobs at the will, Benson at the mic, and now you've got Jack Campbell in our 50 front when we line up in under defense, and we've got that guy at the point of attack on the tight end, you've got Jack Campbell there. Yes. Now, that doesn't come with you just don't come up with that idea and install it during the course of the week. So we're actually fighting that issue right now with those 3 not being out there in full-time roles that we can't rep that. But those guys have enough beneath them that you should be able to implement that during fall camp and get that way of doing things. So that, I think that's what veteran status provides you as a coach, is it gives you a little bit of flexibility. And then on top of it, when you're talking about a guy that's sitting down writing more than you are right now, Scott, on your notepad, as I'm sitting there teaching, like, we're talking diligent, like, every day, then you can do that with your guys. So
How hard is it to get Jack to take a play off? It seems like he's quite the eager player there.
We've had a couple like him in the course of time here, and I think on all 3 levels, defensive line, linebacker, and defensive back, and I think a lot of them are well noted. I do think he joins that conversation as guys that when you're watching from above, or you're watching it on a Sunday, and you're trying to reflect, rewind, critique, be critical at times. Yeah, I mean, that's probably one area where you find yourself stuck. Like, how do I critique the effort here? Is there any more left in the tank? And, the nice thing is when you do get critical or you do critique, somebody like that, when it comes to effort, like, you hit a nerve. You hit a nerve, and it's, you're liable to get out of the way as a coach, because it's about ready to be on for, whatever that next period of practice is, or whatever the next series looks like. But yeah, he's on that level.
You have a couple of younger guys that are pretty talented that could fit into the cash area with, like, Cooper or like Xavier. How do you balance maybe not throwing them too much in the deep end of the pool early on, with seeing what they can do at that position?
Well, this is the time of the year where you do it, and we're fortunate right now that you've got somebody like Xavier that took advantage of the new trend and made this decision and is on campus, and he's got 15 practices that he wouldn't have 2 weeks from now under his belt. But you're just constantly throwing them out there, and I think right now, the beauty of it is we are seeing those personnels from our offense. Like there's some changes that have been made offensively that actually we watch as a staff and we're like, well, this is good. We haven't seen this in the past, but this is something that we see down the road. And, those guys at the cash position, they used to see a small window of pass game. Now they're starting to see a little bit broader pass game, which is good for us because, the majority of the teams that we play, that's the world that they live in. So I think it's just, they're not going out there going through the motions. They're getting something out of it. And, for somebody like Xavier, you're focused on one position with a guy like that early on. And the better you can focus from the back to the front, the easier it is. You take, for instance, the first time that we made the change with Cash, who was our cash player? Hooker. Well, Hooker had seen everything from back or from third level to second level. He'd seen it for his career like that. So then it was easy for him to fall into that role. Well, you have to give somebody like Xavier and you have to give somebody like Cooper DeJean that opportunity to see it that way, as opposed to just seeing, otherwise put them in my room. If they're only going to see it from the second level, put the Cash in my room. But if you're trying to bring somebody down, then it does provide a different perspective. And that's what this time of the year allows us.
One more question? Oh, well, I don't want to steal the last
No,
one.
go ahead.
I'm guessing Phil's not going to want to talk about himself, so I guess what, in your opinion, you know him as well as almost anybody on staff, what makes him so, I guess, good at what he does? And, you're bringing in a Xavier that trusts him to develop him. And,
Yeah, so I don't know what it's been. It's been 8 years running back here and then 3 years as a GA. So I've seen it on two different levels. And I've gotten it from a work standpoint, a professional standpoint, and a personal standpoint with Phil in terms of our relationship. But, what makes him special, I think, is I don't know that his players would agree, but patience. Like there is some patience. There's a lot of ideas that come out of our room that get thrown at his feet, and then he's got to make decisions on it, and that's hard to do. I've been in that role before where you're coordinating a defense and you're trying to listen to this guy, and this guy, and all of it makes sense, but how much can we actually get to, the 45 guys that we have on defense right now, and what makes sense at, this particular time and moment. And so patience has been, patience, but, just, his uniqueness when it comes to, leadership, and he's got a fire to him that, I don't know that too many people sitting in our rooms right now, and I'm talking player wise, I don't know that they know. And I had to share this with a recruit this past weekend. Like, you do realize this guy was 3 times voted all Big Ten. Like, his competitive nature is on a different level. Like, a lot of us wish we could get there. Like, his is, and when you see this fieriness, and it's one, I think it stems from that, but 2, it stems from all these kids. When they come in here, they tell us where they want to go. They tell us what they want to be. And it's our job to try to get them to where they want to be. And in some cases, there's a nice push that needs to be, and Phil is the one that is constantly challenging these guys and challenging us collectively. But, I do go back to, but, he's, I've shared this with you guys before. Like, he defensively, he sees things. It's all built in the back end. So the uniqueness, the special part of, you're seeing, you guys can run the stats on it. Our guys in the back room did it. I think since 15, okay, per game, we lead the country in turnovers. We lead the country in interceptions. Since 2015, probably doesn't get enough credit. Okay, a lot of that is due to how we were built defensively. We're built back to front. We're not built front to back. But then we also would be in the top 5 in the country during that time in terms of giving up big plays. So we're getting takeaways, we're getting interceptions, and we're limiting the big plays. While all of that's going on, we're still doing a pretty good job stopping the run. So, I think, but I go back to, you asked me that question, what makes Phil special, or go back to stability, and just start there. stability, and this will come out wrong, like stick-to-itiveness. You know, I think that is a word. It's got a couple dashes in it when you look it up, but you know, he stuck to it. He stuck to it in his career, and then you know he's been very loyal. So
Very good.
Thanks.
So far, good. Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Seth.
Thanks,
Yep.
Seth.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It has been, a welcome return back to spring football. I'm really pleased. I say that a lot, but I'm really pleased with the guys that I have in my room. This spring's a little bit different. I'm sure you guys have all known, you've all written about it. Just the exodus of defensive linemen that we've had over the past few years. And then the 2021 season, I only lost one guy. One guy due to graduation. So there's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football for us that are returning, and that changes the dynamic of the room, and I appreciate it. I just think that this spring, with the amount of guys that we've had practicing, the reps that they get are really invaluable. You got guys leading the way, older guys like Noah Shannon, Logan Lee, John Wagner. Those guys. Joe Evans is in there. I add him to the mix. Those older guys that are leading the way. I kind of know what to expect out of them, and the improvement that I want to see from them isn't necessarily on the field. Now, don't get me wrong; they can still improve some, but the improvement that I want to see out of them is in a leadership role, in the ability to help coach and help develop the young guys, because that's really how we've been able to do what we've been able to do over the past few years in terms of replacing guys. It's because of the depth. It's because of the communication and the cohesiveness of the group, coaching it from the top guy in the room to the bottom guy in the room. So really appreciate what they're doing in terms of leading those efforts. Got a couple of young guys that enrolled early. It's the first time that me personally, that I've had to deal with that. Two guys that, should be getting ready for prom or spring sports, and they're here banging heads in blocks drill and 9-on-7. So that's an adjustment, helping those guys understand the tempo, helping them understand the expectations and the standard of Iowa defense. And I talked to them about the standard. The standard is the standard. We're not going to lower it for them, but my expectations for them are a lot different than what they would be for Noah Shannon or even a Y.A. Black or Deontay Craig. It's just they don't know yet. They don't know what they don't know, but they're taking the coaching, not only from me, but from the other players. They're improving every single day. And, through 7 practices, I couldn't be more pleased with where we are. And really that has to do with staying away from injuries, knock on wood. But if they're out there, if they're available to me, they got a chance to improve. I think every kid wants an opportunity, wants a real opportunity. And I try to stress to them every day after every practice that you are currently living in your opportunity. If you're out here practicing, helmet on, jersey on, and you're participating in the drills that we're in, you are in your opportunity. Your opportunity doesn't come in Kinnick. Okay, your opportunity comes to prove and gain trust with me every single day, and don't waste a day. Okay, trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. So every single day they got to put a little bit in the bucket. With that being said, I will open it up for questions.
How does your approach change when you've got a group that has so much continuity and so much experience returning?
Yeah, something that I learned, from being under and working with Reese Morgan. Every group is different. So regardless of how much experience they have, I still start at start, because I'm coaching everybody in the room, not just John Wagner, who's been here for 5 years, but I'm also talking to Caden Crawford. I'm talking to Brian Allen, who's been here for 5 months. So my approach doesn't change whether it's a room full of veterans or a room full of young guys. You got to start at start.
Coach, in line with what you said in your opening statement, talking to Noah Shannon yesterday, he said that the room is a lot louder at this point in the year because they played a lot more, they know a lot more. How much of a difference have you seen maybe in their confidence or kind of where they are right now compared to where they were a year ago?
Yeah, you know what? I think that really the confidence across the board is better. And I think they had that same confidence last year. Zach Van Valkenburg last year was just so quick to answer. Everything that I asked, sometimes I had to tell Zach to be quiet because he knew exactly what I was thinking. But it's nice to hear some other voices in the room speak up and kind of own their voice a little bit. I treat my room kind of like an open forum. I encourage guys, I encourage discourse, I encourage those guys to speak. And if they're talking, that tells me that they feel comfortable, that they feel accepted, that they feel some type of significance, and they want to contribute. So the louder the better, as long as we're talking about football.
Kelvin, you talked about you wanted Logan Lee, John Wagner, and them to step up and sort of that leadership role. As a coach, how do you go about maybe instilling confidence in them to step up in those leadership roles?
That's a good question. I don't believe my job as a coach is to instill confidence. Okay. Now I'll give them the leeway. I will encourage them. But that confidence is going to come from them stepping out on their own and actually getting some feedback from the younger guys, because everyone in that room, minus the young guys, has been in that position where they came in and didn't know. So there should be a certain amount of empathy from those old guys, from what those young guys must be going through, and the challenge is for them to reach out to them. Because I asked the guys the other day after practice, I asked John Wagner, hey, when you were here, who'd you look up to? Who'd you follow? Parker Hesse, Anthony Nelson, Matt Nelson. Same thing from Noah Shannon, Cedric Lattimore, Brady Reef, Davion Nixon, go down the list. So it's just so it's always on the forefront of their minds that those young guys are watching them. So it's not so much me instilling confidence, just letting them know that, that's the expectation. That's how we do it.
What kind of growth did you see last year? You had to replace 3 guys who were on NFL rosters, 2 very, very good players who were all Big Ten, and yet the growth seemed to, the numbers seemed to follow that. I mean, what kind of growth did you see, and what do you think's maybe next for this group and what they can achieve?
Yes, I think the growth that I want to see happens for these guys in terms of their development is really pre-snap. I talk to my guys all the time about developing and increasing their pre-snap intelligence. And that's not just turning around, getting the call from Coach Parker, putting your hand in the dirt and playing football. There's millions of cues out there from where the offensive tackle's looking, location of the fullback, location of the tight ends, that young guys that haven't played a lot of reps, they just aren't looking at that. They just may be, okay, I got the call, let me get lined up in the right place. So as a group collectively, as that pre-snap intelligence increases, I think the production of the group increases, because what you get is you get guys that are able to play above and beyond whatever the play call is, because they recognize the situation, they recognize the tendency. So this entire spring, that's what we're trying to harp on these guys, and that's not so much physical, as it is mental. And if you can harness that, then your physical gifts will, they'll multiply. You'll be able to make more plays. You'll be able to make bigger plays, be able to make more of a difference in the game plan if you're keyed in on those pre-snap things, and that's what the spring's for.
In your mind, why does Iowa's defense year after year produce top 10, top 5, top 15, whatever type of numbers just so consistently? What do you see from how this is built?
I go back to, I think about a quote. I had it in my food for thought today with the defensive line, a quote from Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee said, I fear not the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And so you look at the course of our defense and how it's structured, it's been the same since 1999. So in terms, and in continuity within the coaching staff, all of our checks, our balances, our adjustments that we make, these are things that are tried and true, and we know that they work for us. So we're not trying to install a flavor of the week every single week. We know who we are. And I think that allows us to teach the kids in a certain way, and they learn it in a certain way. So I think that continuity over time, coming from the same voices that are familiar with the system, I just think that helps the kids soak it up even faster, and they really believe in it.
We heard Seth talk about how Phil builds it back to front, kind of, so that leaves you in maybe the less glorified position, I guess, on the defense. So is there a lot of sacrifice you have to teach to these guys in terms of the system?
No, that's Seth's opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. He may say it's built back to front. I truly believe that it starts up front because the things that we do up front allow things to happen the way they do on the back end. From coverage standpoints, whether we're playing with 8-man spacing, whether we're playing with 7-man spacing, that's all dictated on what we can handle up front. So, Seth's entitled to his opinion, but our guys in our room, when we look at our contribution, we know good practice, bad practice is predicated on how we did, not what happened on the back end.
Can you talk about the growth that you've seen this spring from Bell or from Black and from Van Ness and Craig?
I can talk about all of those guys. YA is in an interesting situation, because he's a once-a-week guy because of class conflict. But, Van Ness, Deontay Craig, and I would add Ethan Herkett, even though he's not practicing in that group. I would add those guys. That's a unique group from my standpoint, because that's a group that came in during COVID. And I had all those guys. They were able to meet with me. We met 2 hours a week during Zoom, April, May, before we showed up here. So they were able to get a schematic base probably a lot further ahead than a lot of guys because, I mean, I didn't have anything to do, so I was just going through the playbook with those guys. They came in a little bit further ahead from an X's and O's standpoint, so then we just had to catch them up from a fundamental base, and I think you've seen that in their output as early. They've been able to play earlier than what guys usually do here because they understand what they're doing. So, you know, just their growth, again, the pre-snap intelligence is something that I'm going to challenge them with, but where they are from a schematic base in terms of what we do, I couldn't be more pleased. And they're practicing really well. You know, Van Ness, I've tinkled with him outside a little bit, and you guys all know my philosophy on the defensive line. I want guys that can play all over the place because that's going to maximize your value. It's going to make my job a lot easier, too, in terms of, you know, who's going in the game in depth, you know, things of that nature. Deontay Craig's doing a really good job here in the absence of Joe Evans. He's getting a lot of reps outside, but you're going to see him inside as well. So those three guys, you know, the four guys I add Herkett in that mix, too. Couldn't be more pleased with their development. I'm looking for big things for them in 2022.
What do you see, or what have you seen so far from Van Ness on the outside?
You know, Van Ness, obviously, he's got some physical talents that, you know, you can only thank his mom and dad for. You know, he's got good genes. You know, but just his ability, I think his adjustment, things happen quick on the inside. The ball is snapped, guys are on you quicker, and Van Ness is a guy, he's 6'5 plus. You know, he's got long arms. He's got a little bit more time on the outside to uncoil, and I think you'll see more. You'll get to see a little bit more of his athletic ability. But I think that year that he spent on the inside really helped him learn what offenses are trying to do to him, and it's really carrying over to the outside. But he gives us an element of length on the outside and a little bit more athleticism on the outside, which is always welcome.
A few years back, they took Linderbaum from you. This time it's Logan Jones. What was your reaction when Kirk said you were real pleased?
Well, you know, I think, you know, anyone can empathize with the feelings that I had, you know, during that. You take a kid, anything that you've been working on, any project that you've been working on for, you know, you go on 2+ years now, and you build a foundation with that kid and you're excited about it, you know, to have it taken away from you. But, you know, I understand it's going to be for the betterment of the Iowa football team. And would Logan have played defensive tackle for us this year? Absolutely. It would have been a really good one, much like Tyler would. But, you know, there's a need on offense, you know, from a depth standpoint on the offensive line, and that's the best spot for him. So going back to the beginning, when I talked about, you know, the guys helping out the young guys, that creates an opportunity for Louis Stack. That creates an opportunity for Jeremiah Pittman. And those guys get reps that they probably wouldn't have got, that Logan would have had this spring. So it's gonna, you know, it's a good exercise in that regard too. So I hate to lose Logan, great player, recruited him, but you know it's going to be better for our football team that he goes on that side of the ball. I didn't give him up, by the way. Just understand that. That was not voluntary.
One guy you did get come your way was Logan Lee. You know, he would have been a tight end, and then he moved over. Last year, he seemed healthy and played at a really high level. In what ways has he made that growth? And he just looks like he just exudes a confidence about him. That
Logan Lee's a football guy. He's a football guy. You know, from the moment he became a defensive lineman, he put both feet in. Obviously, he's got a unique skill set, too, in terms of being a tight end. There's some athletic ability there. He's got some traits, some size. He's a really studious guy, and he's really dove into, you know, playing defensive line, and he really helps the young guys out a lot. And I think him teaching the young guys and helping the young guys has really helped his overall knowledge of the defense. But without a doubt, he's an unquestioned leader in our room just by the way he carries himself and the expectations that he has of other guys. True team player that this is actually, believe it or not, this going on to his 4th year on campus. This is his first actual spring ball, okay, because there was COVID. And then last year he was hurt. He had the shoulder surgery. He didn't practice spring at all. So this is the first time that he's ever had a spring practice. And going back to that 10,000 kicks quote from Bruce Lee, now he's getting a chance to build his fundamental base in a way that he hadn't done before. So really expecting big things from him in 2022.
what can your depth in 2018 was really apparent when you had Anthony Nelson, Matt Nelson, H. Hefness.
The backups are better than the starters.
Huh?
The backups are better than the starters in 18.
Yeah.
I really believe that, but you know,
And
we'll let them argue about that.
they will too. But now you have kind of a similar base in some ways, because you look at Y.A. Black and the starter kit that he has, and Lucas Van Ness, and then you also have John Wagner. I mean, what's this depth mean for this team, and what can it mean for the defense ultimately?
You know, I do not like questions like that, because I can talk about the depth in 2018 after the fact. I mean, I don't know anything about this depth. I really don't. There's guys that I know I can count on based off of what they did last year, and there's guys that I'm waiting to emerge and see if they're a guy that I can count on. So to talk about the depth right now, I think it's a little bit premature. There's some guys that you feel good about. There's some guys that you keep your fingers crossed about, that you want to see do well, that you know, are everything they're doing right now would lead you to believe that they're going to have a good fall, okay? But it hadn't happened yet, you know. So it's kind of like talking about a recruiting class being ranked here, and then after 4 years, well, what the hell happened? Well, you know, they got to play. They got to roll the ball out there and play. So, you know, guys that I'm excited about, that group that you mentioned, the Y.A. Blacks, excited about Deontay Craig, excited to get Ethan Hurkett back, want to see what Lucas Van Ness can do outside. These are guys that weren't starters last year, but they're going to get their opportunity this year, you know, if we can stay healthy and, you know, keep the games close.
What is Hurkitt's time frame, by the way? Just brought him up.
He'll be back in June. Yeah, he'll be back in June. He's just not going through the spring. Yeah.
Is it too early to talk about Aaron Graves?
Oh boy, no. Aaron's going to come in here. You know, he's going to come in here looking like the rest of the guys that have been here 3 or 4 years. He's physically ready to go. But again, that challenge he didn't get a COVID year with Coach Bell over Zoom, learning the ins and outs of the defense. And he's not going to have the 15 practices that Brian Allen and Caden Crawford had as well. He's not going to get that. So he's going to come in, you know, physically looking like Tarzan. We just got to get him to be like Tarzan. But there's no expectation from my standpoint of him playing against South Dakota State. I said, just makes no mistake about that. If it happens, it happens. But I'm focused on the guys that are here now. But I'm excited that he's here. Trust me. I'm excited that we're going to get him this fall.
Now you got a couple early enrollees. What are kind of your thoughts on that?
You know, I think the kids have to make a decision, and I think there's some pros and cons with both sides. In terms of the reps and dipping your toe into college football early, I think that's going to give you the best opportunity to be immersed in that type of environment, which is going to be better for you in the fall, not only from a football standpoint, but from a time management expectation standpoint, because it is not high school anymore. But do I like track and field? Absolutely. Do I like watching kids play basketball? Absolutely. Track, love to go back to track. Summer baseball. I don't want to rob that, because you really only get one opportunity at a true senior year. And I want guys to take advantage of it. From a football standpoint, it's only going to help you if you're here. The earlier you get into it, it's going to help your adjustment that much sooner. So that's my answer.
All right.